If you're building a DeFi app, your analytics should not start with a dashboard. They should start with a tracking plan. In this guide, we'll walk through how to design a production-ready tracking plan for 3 common DeFi app types: DEXs, lending protocols, and yield vaults. The goal is simple. Make sure the data your app generates is consistent, complete, and useful for product and growth decisions. There are 6 rules to keep in mind throughout the implementation. First, define every event name, trigger, and property before you start coding. Second, use object action naming, such as swap initiated or deposit completed. Third, fire intent events before the wallet confirmation prompt so you can measure where users drop off before signing. Fourth, reserve the volume property for USD transaction value and include it on every volume generating event. Fifth, capture events like liquidations from your backend or contract indexer rather than relying on the front end. And finally, debounce input events like amount entered and pool searched by 500 milliseconds. These rules are simple, but they prevent a lot of analytics problems later. So, what exactly is a tracking plan? A tracking plan is a shared document that defines every event your app emits. It specifies what the event is called, when it fires, and which properties are attached to it. Think of it as the contract between product, engineering, and analytics. A product spec describes what a feature should do. A tracking plan describes what data that feature should produce. Each event should have a standardized name, a precise trigger, a priority level, defined properties, and any implementation notes such as debounce rules or the correct source of truth. The reason this matters is that every DeFi action has 2 layers. There is the off-chain interaction. A user clicks swap, enters an amount, or opens a review modal. Then there is the on-chain outcome. The transaction gets submitted, confirmed, and produces data such as the transaction hash, confirmed volume, and gas used. For example, swap review opened captures intent, while swap completed captures the on-chain outcome, along with its transaction hash, volume, and gas used. A tracking plan keeps these 2 layers connected so you can follow the entire journey rather than seeing isolated events. Without a tracking plan, small inconsistencies quickly become analytics problems. One engineer calls an event swap_completed. Another calls it swap complete. Someone else calls it swap done. Those events may represent the same action, but they will not join cleanly in your dashboards. You can also end up with missing properties. For example, you might know how many swaps happened, but not the USD value of those swaps because volume was never captured. Renamed events can silently break existing funnels, turning what's actually a data problem into what looks like a sprint's worth of product debugging. And auto-tracked events that get manually refired create duplicates, which inflates your counts and makes retention curves unreliable. When the tracking layer is designed properly, analytics becomes much more useful. You can measure the full conversion funnel from a page view to opening the swap review to submitting the transaction and finally completing the swap, all in a single report. You can chart transaction volume alongside event counts without stitching the data together later. Wallet addresses, chains, and asset properties can also be used to build consistent wallet-level profiles across sessions and chains. And because your event definitions are stable, retention analysis becomes much more reliable since you have a locked definition of what counts as an active session. The first convention to establish is event naming. We recommend the object action convention. That means a noun followed by a past tense verb. Swap initiated, limit order placed, supply completed, deposit initiated, vault viewed. The benefit is consistency. When someone sees an event name, they immediately understand what object it relates to and what happened to it. That consistency matters more and more as your event library grows. Not every event needs to be implemented at the same time. We recommend 3 priority levels. P0 events are your core conversion events. For a DEX, that could be a swap. For lending, a supply or borrow. For a vault, a deposit. Without P0 events, you have no funnel. P1 events provide supporting signals, such as approval flows, input behavior, or health factor warnings, and they're the focus of your second instrumentation sprint. P2 events are discovery and UX signals, such as searches, filters, and settings. Ship P0 first, then add P1, and only move into P2 once the core funnel is stable. Once the plan is defined, you can implement it. With the Formo SDK, common events such as page viewed, wallet activity, chain switches, and transactions are tracked automatically. That means custom Formo .track calls should be reserved for events that are not already tracked. Setup takes 3 steps. Install the package, wrap your app in the Formo Analytics provider, and then call the Use Formo hook wherever you need to fire a custom event. For example, you might manually track swap initiated and include properties such as the tokens involved and the transaction volume. Test every event on staging before deploying to production. A single misspelled property name on a P0 event can corrupt weeks of funnel data. Now let's apply the framework to a DEX. The DEX tracking plan covers 26 events across swap execution, limit orders, cross-chain swaps, and liquidity provision. The goal is to capture the complete trading journey from the initial intent through the confirmed transaction. You don't need to implement all 26 events on day 1. Start with the P0 events that define the core conversion funnel. For a DEX, the events split into 3 levels. P0 covers the core funnel, swap review, opened, swap initiated, swap completed, and swap failed, along with the core events for limit orders, cross-chain swaps, and liquidity provision. This is what gives you conversion rates, volume, and drop-off analysis. P1 captures supporting behavior, token approvals, token selection, amount entry, and slippage changes. This is where your approval funnel and slippage correlation data comes from. P2 captures discovery and settings behavior, such as pool searches and filters. Useful for UX optimization and understanding pool discovery patterns. This gives you a clear progression from measuring conversion to understanding optimization opportunities. The core swap funnel is especially important. All 6 events here should be instrumented first. You want to distinguish between reviewing a swap, approving it, submitting it, and getting a confirmed result. The funnel starts with swap review opened when the confirmation modal appears, then token approval initiated and token approval completed when approval is required. Next is swap initiated, meaning the transaction has been submitted, then swap completed when it's confirmed on-chain. And finally, swap failed for rejected or reverted transactions. With these events, you can see exactly where users are dropping out of the swap flow. Let's look at one event in more detail, swap initiated. Its trigger is the swap transaction being submitted to the chain. It's a P0 event because it sits directly in the core conversion funnel. The event should carry the accumulated settings and route information, along with the reserved volume property. That includes the tokens, trading pair, input amount, minimum received, price impact, maximum slippage, root, chain, and USD transaction volume. The result is an event that tells you not just that a swap happened, but what kind of swap it was. Next is lending. The lending tracking plan contains 14 events across market discovery, supplying, borrowing, repayment, and liquidation. The goal is to map the full money market lifecycle, what users discover, what they supply, what they borrow, how they repay, and what happens when positions become risky. The lending lifecycle has 3 main stages. First is discovery and supply. Market viewed, supply initiated, supply completed, and collateral enabled. Then comes borrowing and repayment. Borrow initiated, borrow completed, repay completed, and withdraw completed. Finally, there's the risk layer. Health factor warning. Shown tells you when a position becomes risky, while liquidation occurred captures the actual liquidation. Use health _factor _after on borrow. Initiated to understand how aggressively users are leveraging up, then pair health factor warning shown with liquidation. Occurred to see how many warned users act before it's too late. There's one important difference with liquidation events. Capture them from your indexer or contract event listener, not from the front end. A liquidation can happen while the user isn't even looking at your app. The reliable source is the blockchain itself. This is the most important risk signal in a lending app. If you only track what happens while the user is on your front end, you'll miss the actual event entirely. The third app type is yield vaults. The yield vault tracking plan covers 12 events across vault discovery, deposits, withdrawals, yield claims, and strategy migrations. The core goal is understanding not only when capital enters a vault, but how long it stays and what happens when the user exits. For vaults, the core P0 events are deposit initiated, deposit completed, withdraw initiated, and withdraw completed. Vault viewed and vault filter applied support discovery, while yield claimed and strategy migrated round out the supporting events. One useful implementation detail: calculate yield _earned _USD and holding _duration _seconds when a withdrawal completes. That lets you measure realized yield and holding duration from the original deposit. If your vault auto-compounds, you can skip a separate yield claimed event and rely on the withdrawal event to capture the realized yield. Across DEXs, lending apps, and yield vaults, the same 8 implementation principles apply. Use object action naming throughout. Prioritize P0 events first. Pass volume on every transaction event. Fire intent events before the wallet confirmation. Apply a 500 milliseconds debounce to input events. Capture server-side events from your indexer. Use a normalized error underscore type enum. And test on staging before deploying to production. These rules give you a consistent foundation regardless of the type of DeFi app you're building. There are also a few mistakes worth avoiding. Manually firing events that are already auto-tracked, such as page viewed or wallet activity, creates duplicates. Skipping volume on volume generating events leaves you with accurate counts, but no dollar value attached. Firing events only after the wallet confirmation collapses 2 funnel steps into 1. You need the intent event before the signature prompt and the completion event after confirmation. Spending your first instrumentation sprint on P2 discovery events while the core funnel is still unreliable gets you rich discovery data with no reliable measure of whether users complete a swap or deposit. And skipping stakeholder review means the plan only answers questions engineering thought to ask, not the ones product and growth actually need. So where should you start? Start with P0 only. For a DEX, that means swap initiated, swap completed, and swap failed. For lending, start with supply initiated, borrow initiated, and liquidation occurred. For yield vaults, start with deposit initiated, deposit completed, and withdraw completed. Get those events firing correctly on staging, verify the property shapes, then deploy to production. Once the core funnel is reliable, add P1 and P2 events as you need more detail. The full plans cover 26 DEX events, 14 lending events, and 12 yield vault events. A tracking plan is the foundation for reliable DeFi analytics. Before you build dashboards, funnels, or retention reports, make sure the underlying events are consistent and meaningful. If you want to build your own tracking plan, you can use Formo's tracking plan generator at formo dot, so / tracking plan generator. And if you want to measure what matters on-chain across your DeFi app, Formo makes analytics and attribution simple. Thanks for watching.